The Battle of the Atlantic was the longest continuous campaign of World War II, lasting from September 1939 to May 1945. It was not a single battle but a sustained and brutal struggle to control the vital shipping lanes that connected North America to Britain and the wider Allied world. For the United Kingdom, an island nation dependent on overseas supplies, the Atlantic was a lifeline. If it were severed, Britain would be starved into submission. The battle pitted Allied merchant ships and escorts against German U-boats, surface raiders, and aircraft in a deadly contest of survival, innovation, and endurance. Why the Atlantic was vital. Britain imported most of its food, raw materials, oil, and war supplies from abroad. These came primarily from the United States and Canada. As soon as war broke out in 1939, German submarines, U-boats, began targeting British merchant shipping to cut off this critical supply chain. The strategy, known as commerce raiding, aimed to isolate and starve Britain into surrender. The stakes were simple and stark. If the convoys stopped, Britain would fall. The U-boat threat. Under the command of Admiral Karl Donitz, Germany's U-boat fleet quickly grew in size and audacity. Using wolf-pack tactics, groups of U-boats would coordinate to attack Allied convoys under the cover of darkness. The results were devastating. Merchant ships, often slow and lightly armed, were torpedoed in staggering numbers. In 1942, known as the Second Happy Time for U-boat commanders, German submarines sank hundreds of ships along the American eastern seaboard and across the Atlantic. German surface ships such as the Bismarck and Scharnhorst also hunted Allied vessels, although their impact was less sustained than that of the U-boats. The convoy system. To counter the threat, the Allies employed a convoy system, grouping merchant ships together under the protection of naval escorts like destroyers, corvettes, and later escort carriers. While not foolproof, convoys drastically reduced the risk of individual ships being picked off. Key to the success of convoys was the growing use of long-range patrol aircraft, such as the consolidated B-24 Liberator, and the development of small escort carriers that could bring air cover deep into the Atlantic Air Gap, a region once out of reach of land-based planes. Technological innovations. The battle also became a race of technology. Radar and sonar, ASTIC, helped locate and track U-boats. Hedgehog and depth charges were deployed to destroy submerged submarines. Ultra-intelligence, from code-breaking at Bletchley Park, gave Allied commanders insights into U-boat positions by decoding German Enigma messages. Lee lights mounted on aircraft allowed them to spot surfaced U-boats at night. By 1943, new weapons and tactics were turning the tide in favor of the Allies. Turning the tide. 1943. The year 1943 marked the decisive turning point in the Battle of the Atlantic. Thanks to improved tactics, better escort coverage, and crucial intelligence breakthroughs, Allied losses sharply declined while U-boat casualties soared. The Allies also ramped up shipbuilding, especially in the United States, to replace lost vessels faster than the Germans could sink them. Mass-produced Liberty ships and Victory ships kept supplies flowing to Britain and the Soviet Union via Arctic convoys. In May 1943, dubbed Black May by the Germans, Allied forces sank 43 U-boats, a catastrophic loss for the Kriegsmarine. Donitz withdrew many submarines from the Atlantic, and while U-boat attacks continued until the war's end, the worst of the danger had passed. The human cost. The battle was fought not just with machines, but with the bravery and endurance of sailors. Over 72,000 Allied sailors and merchant seamen were killed. German losses were also staggering. Around 30,000 U-boat crewmen died, a casualty rate of over 75%. Merchant seamen, often civilians, faced harrowing journeys across icy, storm-tossed seas under constant threat from unseen enemies. Yet they kept sailing, knowing that without them the war effort would collapse. Legacy of the battle. Victory in the Battle of the Atlantic ensured that Britain remained supplied, the Soviet Union received aid, and that American forces could cross the ocean to launch the D-Day invasion in 1944. Without control of the Atlantic, none of this would have been possible. Winston Churchill later wrote, "The Battle of the Atlantic was the dominating factor all through the war. Everything else, everything, depended upon its outcome." Through innovation, resilience, and international cooperation, the Allies kept the lifeline open. The Atlantic remained the most dangerous battlefield of the war, but in the end, it was a fight the Allies could not afford to lose and one they ultimately won.